Good morning. This is Morgan. We're going to share just a short video of some of the staff in our office, as well as just a few slides regarding information about our program. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Leave a chat in the chat box. We have specific times where you can speak to the providers, but feel free to ask any questions.
Did you know that epilepsy is the second most common neurological disorder behind stroke? And when it comes to treatments, there are other options to consider besides medication. Joining us now with more is Dr. Sandon Latou, Director of Texas Comprehensive Epilepsy Program at UTHealth Neurosciences. Dr. Latou, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us on Houston Live.
Thank you very much.
So Epilepsy Awareness Month, we are in it right now in November. Let's get an overview. What is epilepsy? I know most of us consider this and really think about this as associated with seizures. What causes it and what is epilepsy?
So epilepsy is a tendency to recurrent seizures. And that is essentially what comprises the condition. There are a number of different causes. In many people, it's either genetic or a tendency through genetics. In others, it's a problem that's caused by some kind of brain disorder. It could be due to tumors, could be due to an old stroke, could be due to head injuries in the past causing traumatic brain injury. So any of these conditions that affects the brain is capable of causing epilepsy. It's very common. So 1 in 20 people at some point in their lives will have an epileptic seizure. But happily, in the vast majority, we can treat them.
It's really remarkable. 1 in 20, that's amazing to me. Let's talk about what these symptoms are. We're looking at the screen here. Temporary confusion. Again, Dr. Latou, I said in the beginning that we associate epilepsy with seizures, but there are various degrees and different symptoms. Can we walk through some of these? Because it's not always a seizure, a convulsion, right?
Yes, you are quite right. The most extreme manifestation is a convulsion where a person loses consciousness, falls to the floor, and shakes or convulses. But there are many other types of seizures. In some, there is just a very brief loss of contact with the environment, what we refer to as absence seizures. And there are many variations to this theme.
And when we talk about treatment options, and I know, doctor, whether we're talking about pediatric epilepsy or somebody that has this as an adult, treatment options obviously are case-by-case basis, but most people tend to think that this would be treated by medication.
You're quite right. In about 2/3 of cases, medication tends to work very well. Compared to just 20, 30 years ago, we have many drug treatment options for seizures. But in those in whom medical treatment doesn't work, we do have surgical options. So we can actually pinpoint the origin of the seizures in the brain, and we can either tackle them through surgery, or what we call resective surgery, or we can use new techniques which are non-invasive or minimally invasive. And this means the use of laser technologies, for example, to get rid of those areas that cause seizures, and even deep brain stimulation. So we put electrodes deep into the brain, and stimulate the brain to stop seizures from occurring. So there are many options available these days for the treatment of seizures.
And people really can live with epilepsy and controlling those types of seizures. And the last one that you were mentioning, I want to say, is that sort of like a pacemaker for the brain, where it's really targeting that one area to turn it off, so to speak?
Yes, you're absolutely right. These are devices that function like pacemakers, but rather than pace the brain, they sense the occurrence of seizures and they short circuit the seizures by passing in current into the brain. Correct assessment is extremely important, so we know what treatments to use for different patients with different types of epilepsy.
Absolutely, a case-by-case basis.
What I specialize in is using electrodes placed inside the brain to understand how the brain is working. Specifically, I'm interested in how the brain does various language and memory processes that make us human. So what we'd like to do is deliver stimulation to the brain that allows us to restore function. We put these electrodes in patients who have intractable epilepsy. Intractable epilepsy is epilepsy that has not responded to medications and that is generally making people significantly disabled from its presence. We use this information from the electrodes to pinpoint which part of the brain was making the seizures. And at the current time, we then target that area of the brain with either a laser to destroy the area making seizures, or we go in and remove it. It's only when you see people with a language impairment that you realize how precious language is. I would like to design an entire system that we could implant in people's brains to continuously record brain activity and to modulate brain activity for various purposes, specifically for modulation of language function in patients who had language disability, but also to modulate epilepsy in patients who have epilepsy. Similarly, to modulate memory in patients who have memory impairments. We live in a very interesting time when computer science and neural technologies are evolving very rapidly. I think our understanding of the brain and then our ability then to interact with our own brain in ways that we've never thought possible have never been as good as today. This work and the cooperation of our patients allows us to dream someday that we might be able to restore language in patients who've had damage to their brains from strokes or brain injuries of other kinds.
Hoy les quería hablar de la Clínica Hispana de Epilepsia que dirijo en UTHealth en Houston. La Clínica Hispana de Epilepsia es parte del Programa Integral de Epilepsia de Texas, que es una colaboración entre UTHealth y Memorial Hermann Hospital. Este programa ofrece a los pacientes los últimos avances en cirugía, incluido la cirugía láser, que es una cirugía mínimamente invasiva que sirve para curar la epilepsia. El objetivo que tenemos con la clínica es brindar excelencia en la atención médica de la epilepsia a una población que de habla hispana y con un dominio limitado del inglés. En el área de Houston, donde prácticamente el 45% de la población son hispanos. Lo que se ha demostrado es que eliminar la barrera del idioma contribuye a mejorar los resultados en nuestros pacientes y el acceso a opciones modernas de tratamiento, tanto médico como quirúrgico, es esencial para garantizar la ausencia de convulsiones. En la Clínica Hispana de Epilepsia ofrecemos un cuidado personalizado para la epilepsia para pacientes hispanohablantes y sus familias con un dominio limitado del inglés. Toda la atención, tanto la coordinación de citas, interacciones con pacientes y sus familias, todo es realizado por personas que hablan español de manera fluente, incluidos doctores y asistentes.